The Kenya Flower Council currently holds the presidency of the International Flower Trade Association, Union Fleurs, whose main purpose is to represent and promote the interest of traders of cut flowers, cut foliage, and pot plants. Since 1996, Kenya Flower Council (KFC) has promoted sustainable floriculture in Kenya. KFC represents the majority of the industry. Moreover, it has established an internationally benchmark standard through the EU-based Floriculture Sustainability Initiative (FSI) for sustainable social and environmental practice. KFC's silver standard, officially known as the Flowers and Ornamental Sustainability Standards (FOSS), meets both social and environmental requirements set by FSI.
Before you decide to send these flowers to the external market, you must understand the requirements for that market, and then you set structures for compliance. As KFC, our job is mainly to inspect with regard to the plant health, that is phytosanitary services, and also on quality of the flowers that are going out. And we ensure that they comply with the market requirements that may vary from one market to another. Some of you, especially the business people, we've been working very closely. And you know, right now, one of the challenges we have, especially for the European market, is forest cording moth, and we continue to encourage you to manage those pests at the farm level. They cannot be managed at the exit point. And also for the Australian market, you need to understand those ones don't want to see even a neck on the flowers. So you have to make sure that your production facilities are pest-free for all pests, including drips and mites. Otherwise, as KFC, we are ready to work with you to build your capacity to do that, and also to ensure compliance. And we continually improve our service provision to ensure that we are able to clear your consignments in the shortest time possible.
The flower industry in Kenya has over the years grown to become one of the major contributors to the Kenyan economy because of the flower exports each year. The industry is also a major employer to the people living around the flower farms. Despite all these, there are numerous challenges that most flower farms face on a daily basis.
Over the years, the cost of production has been increasing. And particularly this year and part of last year, the industry has faced issues of delayed inputs occasioned by the impasse that was there at the port of Mombasa in terms of clearance of vital inputs for farming. And we have had fertilizer delayed, chemicals delayed, and other farm inputs delayed, which has in turn increased the cost of production. We have not been able to get a similar margin from our clients because we operate in a very competitive environment. And therefore, we are calling upon the government to do whatever it can to stabilize this environment of flower production so that we can remain competitive in the marketplace where we are competing against other nations that are also growing flowers.
When we are in propagation, the challenges we face is that you find that maybe a grower approaches us, they require maybe a certain variety, but they will not disclose their market. It is something confidential to them. So us, most of the time, we are doing for the local farmers, that is in Kenya, and maybe a few in other countries. Especially for roses, we are dealing with just few of them, abroad. And so many growers, actually, currently, as the roses business is sinking down, you find that the summer flowers, they are the ones now coming up. Like if you can base on the previous flower markets, roses prices were down, but for the summer flowers, the ones we are displaying, it's coming up.
Some of the challenges include high transportation costs, poor staff turnover, lack of enough storage facilities, high demands, and poor working conditions, among others.
But we're optimistic because every week we ferry about 2 tons on the direct flight into the US. We want to take these up to maybe 10 tons if it's possible. And we know that the opportunity is there, the potential is there. A lot of studies have been done by us together with our partners, and we know that the US is a big market. We are going into the US to complement the market and not to compete, because the kind of product we have is slightly different from what is exported into the US by our competitors in South America. They have a big head roses, we have small head roses to more medium. And so our promotion is that we can provide something different from what is already in that market. And we know that with that strategy, we are likely to penetrate and make some good headway, cut back the kind of dominance that we have from South Americans. We expected at the launch of direct flight in October last year that will have an immediate impact, especially on the floriculture industry. But as you know, that we've had a bit of challenges sustaining the flight into the US. We started with 7 flights, and after a while it was reduced to 5. So currently we have only 5 flights a week into the US, and Kenya Airways flies to New York. It's a good destination, but for those who know the US, you know that the flower hub is actually in Miami. So there is a bit of a challenge there, getting our produce from New York to Miami, where there are better distribution channels into the entire US. So those are the logistics we are looking at, so that we can have a seamless movement of our produce from New York to Miami. The other challenge, of course, is that we're looking at capacity. Kenya Airways at the moment can only provide up to 6 tons. And we know that it's not just about flowers. We are competing with other produce, especially garments. And therefore, we need more capacity. We are talking to government if it's possible for government to engage with Kenya Airways and their international partners to open up much more space for us, probably have a fully fledged cargo flight into the US.
Responding to the challenges, the Permanent Secretary in the State Department of Trade, Dr. Chris Kipto, apologized to the floriculture industry for the inconveniences caused to the industry and promised to streamline government's investments and commitments to the sector.
So we have an assurance that there will be no market disruption to Europe in the foreseeable future, and even Brexit, which we had fears that this would also disrupt the market. We have worked with the UK government, and we have assurances that despite what is happening, our market access to UK will remain uninterrupted. So this is the message government is giving to the industry, to tell them to continue with their investments, because we are there to make sure their markets are preserved. But we are also busy getting new markets. Japan is a good market. We are working with the government of Japan to address sanitary and phytosanitary issues with the KFIS, which is represented here. I think that's the main issue in that market. For new markets like China, China is an important market. You know, our president last year led us to the International Import Expo in Shanghai, and during that time we met President Xi Jinping and the leadership of China, and we were able to sign the sanitary and phytosanitary agreement, and now we have a lot of our crops going to be accessing that market. And the KFIS has already worked on issues around avocado. The avocado market is open, even though it's frozen avocado. Last week we had the Vice Minister of China in my office. We had a bilateral meeting with him and his team, and we have agreed to address some of those issues to ensure even fresh avocado can access that market. But I think for flowers to China, we don't have many issues around SPS. The main problem is on tariffs, which is ranging between 4 to 10%. And we have started discussions around that for a possibility of an arrangement like what we have with the US, an AGOA type. Of course, it's going to take a while because we belong to the same category under WTO. with China, and it is a matter that will take long. The same thing for Turkey, which is an important market. The main problem with Turkey is also high tariffs. I'm told it ranges up to nearly 20%. And we are discussing bilaterally with that country to see whether we can also have a trade arrangement that lowers the tariffs. But we have markets like Australia, which have grown. We know they have introduced new measures that require offshore fumigation of the flowers. And we are working with KEFIs and others to see how this can be addressed. But we have also encouraged the private sector to see if they can invest in fumigation facilities to ensure that they continue to access that market. But we have talked to the Australian government to see if the period can be extended to allow us for more time to adjust. But that is an important market. We are also in US, which is an important market. We want to maximize the remaining years of AGOA of 6 years to 2025. So we're working through our AGOA strategy to see more access to that market, especially through direct flight, which was launched last year. And we have seen great improvements in our exports to US through the direct flights. Every day we've seen our planes carrying our flowers to New York, which doesn't have enough facilities, because I think Miami is a place where there are more facilities for the flowers in terms of lengthening the shelf life. But we will work with the American government to see how, with the private sector also of the US, that can be addressed so that the logistics around for our flowers can be improved. But we are also in discussions with the US government, and we have been there twice this year, with the Department of Agriculture through the AFIS, which is the equivalent of Kenya, the KEFIs, to ensure that there is mutual recognition of the certification, so that whatever KEFIs does, the Americans can accept.
Kenya currently exports flowers to over 60 destinations, with more opportunities coming up in Japan, China, India, Australia, Canada, the United States, and Eastern Europe.
We are happy with the partnership we have with government, especially the State Department of Trade. We have been able to discuss very closely a lot of challenges, not just within what we experience locally, but also internationally, and the support that the government can offer us. For us, we are looking at diversifying into the new markets, and the existing market, especially in Europe, we maintain it, because having a market share of almost 40% in Europe is being envied by everyone else, and we know that we have to remain competitive if we have to maintain that market. So we are looking at beefing up more on the standard side of things and certification, but also looking at vigorous promotion so that the Kenyan brand of flowers is understood and appreciated within the existing markets and the new markets. So our strategy as we go forward is to support the growers at their level, at the farm, with audits and certification, and now transit that into the market in terms of doing a rigorous promotion so that we boost the brand that we have.
The floriculture industry provides direct employment to an estimated 150,000 people, a majority of whom are women.